made to be broken. After all, why would we keep various records of activities and events if we didn't have the overpowering urge to be the best at them? However, we're not talking about Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps here. No, instead, we're looking at people who attempted to break various records and failed in the ultimate way. From speeding planes and boats to deep-sea diving and skydiving, claiming a world record isn't easy and can sometimes be downright deadly. You know what is easy? Clicking that red subscribe button, so be sure to hit it before settling in. Haris Suleiman. There are a lot of records related to flying, and 17-year-old Haris Suleiman attempted to break one of them. Only a few years ago, the teen attempted to break the record for youngest pilot to circumnavigate the globe in a single-engine plane. Starting in the United States, Haris and his co-pilot father, Babar, were on the final leg of the journey when tragedy struck. Shortly after taking off from an airfield in American Samoa, their Beechcraft plane crashed into the ocean. Harris's body was recovered, but search teams couldn't find his father or the wreckage of the plane. Guy Garman. You probably don't picture scuba diving as being particularly dangerous. After all, strap on a wetsuit, tank, and some flippers, and you're all set, right? Well, there's more to it than that. In fact, the underwater world is filled with all sorts of records, and Dr. Guy Garman, aka Doc Deep, tried to break one of those in 2015. Garman was aiming to break the record for deepest scuba dive and planned on descending to an incredible 1,200 feet straight down. At first, everything seemed fine, but as the minutes ticked by and Garman didn't reappear from the deep, his crew knew something had gone wrong. A later investigation gave the cause of death as drowning. Sailendra Nath Roy. Stuntman Sailendra Nath Roy had some pretty strong hair. How do we know that? Well, this Indian record breaker had already pulled a train with his ponytail and even flown between two buildings suspended by his lustrous locks. The next challenge? Cross a river on a 600-foot zip line suspended by his ponytail. Onlookers watched as Roy started his record-breaking crossing before something went wrong. Stuck in mid-air, the stuntman struggled to keep moving before he went totally limp. He had unfortunately suffered a massive and fatal heart attack, dramatically ending his record-breaking career. Lowell Bales. When it comes to flying, there are all sorts of different records, such as altitude and distance. Back in the 1930s, the airplane was still relatively new and people were obsessed with speed. Daredevils would build and fly experimental planes, all in the effort to set new speed records. Lowell Bales was one of those pilots. In December 1931, near Detroit, Bales climbed in his GB Racer and took off. In a freak accident as his plane began its run, a gas cap came loose and smashed through the windscreen, knocking Bales out. The plane crashed soon after, with the obvious result. Javad Palizbanian. You've all heard of Evel Knievel. He was the famous American stuntman best known for jumping various obstacles on his motorcycle. Well, Knievel's exploits inspired a generation of daredevils, including Javad Palizbanian. This Iranian stuntman must have really liked Knievel's attempt to jump 13 buses because he tried to jump 22. The 44-year-old didn't even come close to making it. In fact, ironically, he only made it to the 13th bus before he crashed and died on impact. Bill Warner. While we're on the topic of motorcycles, it is well known that daredevils that aren't jumping them for distance are revving the motors in an effort to break speed records. Florida's Bill Warner was one of those speed demons who tried to break the 300-mile-per-hour record in under 1 mile. Using a modified Suzuki Hayabusa, Warner got up to around 285 miles per hour before losing control. Crowds could only watch helplessly as the driver tumbled down the track while his bike disintegrated. An hour after the crash, Warner was pronounced dead. Donald Campbell. Strapping a jet engine onto a boat sure doesn't sound too safe. However, if you want to break speed records on the water, it's something a lot of people do. Donald Campbell was one of those people who was brave or crazy enough to do this. In 1967, this daredevil was actually trying to break his own record of 276 miles per hour. On his second run across the lake, spectators and cameras all watched as the rocket-powered boat lifted off, somersaulted, and smashed back down, killing Campbell. Unofficially, he had reached an incredible 330 miles per hour. Juan Francisco Guillermo. Not all records are about high speed, and Juan Francisco Guillermo's story can prove that. The Chilean's goal was to ride his bicycle around the world, through 5 continents, in 5 years. It was a trip of more than 155,000 miles, which should have ended in Australia, but Guillermo never made it. While biking through Thailand, not too far from the end of his journey, a pickup truck crashed into the 47-year-old cyclist and killed him. Disturbingly, such an event seemingly proves that pretty much any record attempt, regardless of speed, has the potential for tragedy. Diana Paris. Who deliberately throws themselves from a perfectly good plane? Well, a lot more people than you probably think. You see, skydiving is a very popular sport, and there are more than a few people who try to break all kinds of records. Take Diana Paris, for example. As part of a group of 222 skydivers, the German was trying to break the record for the largest number of people completing 2 aerial formations before deploying their parachute. Unfortunately, during the jump, Paris's main chute malfunctioned, and by the time she deployed her reserve chute, it was just too late. Janaka Baznayaki. Diving deep, going fastest, or traveling the furthest, those are the kind of records we are used to. What about being buried alive intentionally? Well, Janaka Baznayaki of Sri Lanka set his sights on getting a record for being buried. He dug a 10-foot deep trench and had his friends and family bury him under the dirt. Then they left him for the weekend. When Baznayaki was dug up, he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The terrible thing about all of this is that Guinness apparently doesn't even recognize being buried alive as a record-holding event. Well then, that's a wide range of stunts and record attempts that went horribly wrong. You know what's safer? Staying inside and watching a few more videos we have to offer here at The Richest. You won't break any records, but you also won't be putting yourself in harm's way. Remember to subscribe, comment, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!